Hello and welcome to the Hey Mama podcast. I'm Haley,
I'm Kirsten.
and we are just here to encourage you mamas in whatever you're struggling with in motherhood and to just, keep going. And yeah, that was the smoothest intro we've had. It only
I know,
took,
I was like, one day we'll record something. Or not.
I
We'll see.
know. Well, maybe if we start getting revenue from ads or something, we can purchase podcast equipment someday.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have
That's true.
1,000 downloads a month to be allowed to put ads into your podcast.
Dang.
Yeah. So, share this podcast, people. We are probably going to take a 1 or 2 week break. I don't know what you're feeling, but
Whatever.
I just need a mental break for a little bit.
That's okay. It's a lot
Um,
to make a podcast. We get it.
It is. And so, yeah, I like the 10 episodes. I like what we've talked about so far. Um, and I feel like pretty much every episode has brought us back around to having humility and to being humble. And today we're really going to dive into that and how, I guess maybe how we see that in our lives, like how the Lord brings that out in us, like whether or not, it's consequences of our sin or what. But so we'll continue that conversation. But before we get to the end of podcast and run out of time to tell you where to find us,
Yes.
you can follow me on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Woman. You can follow Kirsten on Facebook. She's just Kirsten Wayne on Facebook, right?
Just, yep, Kirsten win. That's all.
And then you can go to our blog. And if you subscribe to our blog, then you can, oh, I should tell you how to get to the blog. Wonderfullymadewoman.blog. All one word, .blog. Anyways, and you can subscribe for book club. I'm hoping like next round of the podcast, people will really jump into book club. And I'm gonna try and prioritize like us going live on the Facebook page.
I think that live would help because
Yeah.
who knows who would show up? Like random people could see it. And which maybe that's what they need. Because the whole algorithm will show people things. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it'd be beneficial. Maybe some mom who doesn't know about us will run into us.
Yeah, exactly. And if I make terrible faces, it's just because I'm having Braxton Hicks. Um, I can't remember what I was saying now. Sorry.
You had a devotional to read
Oh, yes.
too.
Okay. The fifth baby is just a lot on the body, man. Okay, I don't even know where I got this little book. It's covered in food because my kids were convinced for a while it was their personal Bible.
Oh, yeah, I
And
get that.
I was like, this is not the Bible, number one. And number two, it's mine. But
Yours.
it is by Oswald Chambers, and it is called My Utmost for His Highest. And I know nothing about Oswald Chambers or his history in life, just know he was a pretty good theologian. Anyways, I love these devotionals, and they're just simple and quick and stab you in the heart. But, anyways, the abandonment of God. God so loved the world that he gave. It gives you like a little scripture to go read. So this is John 3:16. Salvation is not merely deliverance from sin, nor the experience of personal holiness, for the salvation of God is deliverance out of self entirely into union with himself. My experimental knowledge of salvation will be along the line of deliverance from sin and of personal holiness. But salvation means that the Spirit of God has brought me into touch with God's personality. And I am thrilled with something infinitely greater than myself. I am caught up into the abandonment of God. To say that we are called to preach holiness or sanctification is to get into a side eddy. We are called to proclaim Jesus Christ. The fact that he saves from sin and makes us holy is part of the effect of the wonderful abandonment of God. Abandonment never produces the consciousness of its own efforts because the whole life is taken up with the one whom we abandon. Beware of talking about abandonment if you know nothing about it, and you will never know anything about it until you have realized that John 3:16 means that God gave himself absolutely. In our abandonment, we give ourselves over to God just as God gave himself for us without any calculation. The consequence of abandonment never enters into our outlook because our life is taken up with him. That was good. I was getting a
Hmm.
little nervous there in the middle. I was like, what? What is he talking about? Abandonment of God. Oh, and you know what? That fits just perfectly into humbleness.
It does. Because I feel like a lot of the times people actually it's funny because oh, you and I were talking about Habakkuk and my Bible study that we just had. And that kind of I guess would relate into it. Just and we'll get into why Habakkuk and my Bible study like all kind of intertwines with things and there's good points to it, but like there could be evil situations or things that are going on and we feel like God's departed from us and really that's not the case. God will never leave you or forsake you. It's us that moves away and gets all puffed up and proud about ourselves.
Yes, definitely. And I think what he's talking about is abandoning yourself. Like to truly submit to Christ is to abandon everything that you know, right? To give up those fleshly needs, to give up just everything because all is for naught without Christ, right? And so and it just it all it I've I've so loved going through Philippians, and I'm just so blessed that God has put that in my life right now because I definitely could be there's a lot of things happening in my life that I could be like, oh, poor me. Oh, doesn't anybody realize how hard I have it? Doesn't anybody realize, just everything. Literally every day I could come up with a new reason to be upset or to be like, woe is me. And not that I'm not good at, or not that I'm good at, you know what I'm trying to say. I
Hmm.
fail every day. Every day I do throw myself a little pay party, and then we have to have a little come to Jesus, a little conversation with Jesus. Um, and yeah, anyways, I just to truthfully know Christ is to die to yourself, right? And so often we put our sacrifice way above Christ's sacrifice, way above the sacrifice of God, loving the world so much that he abandoned himself and gave his one and only son. Yeah, I mean, anyways, that is just, it's mind blowing the more you think about it. You know what I mean? Because he didn't have
Hmm.
to do that. He's the all powerful, all knowing creator of this entire universe. Go outside and look at the stars at night if you want to feel really small.
Yeah. Especially because you are in an area where you can see all the stars, but we can see them if we walk a little bit ways out of town. But it is amazing. And I mean, every day you can just be out and be in his creation and see everything that he sacrificed for us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so amazing. And then yeah, and then it really does go into that humbleness and then of oh, oh, I am nothing. There's been many times where I've been like moving cows. I haven't moved cows in years because I'm pregnant or have small children. But
Yeah.
um, you can go off by yourself, you're gonna go ride off by yourself to go find some cows somewhere. Anyways, and you
Hmm.
get to the top of like a hill or something, and you're by yourself, and there's nobody else around you. And where I live, it's just sagebrush, so you can see everything.
Right.
And that can make you realize how small you are, you know? It can just, we are such a small-minded people in the first place. we don't fully comprehend, I think,
No.
at all what it means to truthfully die to ourselves. Even though we try to emulate that and try to, deny ourselves and to pick up our burdens and give them to Christ and to pursue Christ.
Right.
It, I don't know. It's just, sorry. It's just mind-blowing, I think. A little bit. All the time, actually. If I really think about it, I'm like, oh, okay.
No, I understand that. I was going to say, I know I always feel the smallest in compared to, oh, well, okay. So this morning I was reading over Exodus, and this is where like the Lord is, um, I don't want to say pronouncing, but giving the Ten Commandments. And I can only imagine like being the Israelites at the bottom of the mountain and the storm that's coming down. And I know whenever we go to visit our sister-in-law Suzanne, because she has these towering mountains around her, and I'm just in awe of those. But I'm like, I am this big, and I am nothing special. Like there are a million other people out there like me. So to be puffed up and proud and be like, oh, I'm doing so great. And I'm such a big thing, especially like thinking that I'm all that on social media. And I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah. Social media is a hard one too because there's two sides of people screaming at you like you are nothing special. You are nothing.
Mhm.
What you do is nothing. Which in reality, not to like hate on what you just said, but I know
No,
that
I
I love that like you are nothing special because it is special. You
it
know,
is.
it is special that we're chosen by Christ to follow him. It is special that we were even conceived. I mean, it to yeah, anyways.
We're
But
valuable and special in Christ's eyes.
yeah,
But
we
that's
shouldn't
if
be in our own.
yeah, I was gonna say if you take that out and throw Christ away from all of that, then you're just glorifying yourself. Do you know what I mean? Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's like what we have been talking about with social media, especially um and humbleness on social media. I we both struggle, right? Like we both struggle with that like, oh, is this for me? Is this for God?
Hmm.
Where's the fine line? Like obviously if you're trying to pursue social media and like some people just use social media and they just use it and post or whatever, but you're still hoping people like your stuff. You're still hoping somebody says, "Hey, cute family." You're still hoping somebody says something, right?
Yes.
And um I listen, the comedian John Crist.
Maybe.
He's
I have to look him
hilarious.
up.
Uh he's got some hilarious stuff. But I he has a podcast that I've been listening to, which is just I listen to a lot of podcasts. Anywho,
That's
uh,
okay.
and but he was talking in there about like especially like women or like and they're kind of talking more so along the lines of like single women especially on social
Mhm.
media will like post this like beautiful picture of themselves. They look gorgeous. And then be like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe how like ugly I am and how long it took me to get to look like this or whatever." And he made a joke about being like, "Can we just like be honest and put in our caption like 500 likes on this photo would make me feel amazing about myself. Thanks." Like, you know what I mean? Instead of trying to be like, "Oh, I'm just so not cute." Like,
I get that. Like,
and and I kind of feel the same way about moms de-influencing. You know what I mean? I it kind of drives me crazy because it's like, let's glory with me in my laziness or in my lack of self-control to accomplish my daily tasks. Like everybody has something right now. I am looking at my children's disaster of a playroom right now, right? But
yeah,
that doesn't mean I let my entire house stay a disaster, right? Like I
Right.
did my dishes, I wiped my like I did the things I know I have to do. Is my bed
Yes.
today? No. But do I feel the need to like be like, guys, make me feel better about myself. Look at this. I'm not a perfect influencer, kind of, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's
like look at my messy house I'm relating to. And it's like, ugh, yeah.
no. And I've seen like on TikTok some really terrible like examples of like nasty floors and like nasty stuff. And it's like, no, no, that's your laziness. That's not, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
as young moms, and I promise we will get back to Habakkuk and humbleness and everything. But as young moms and moms with littles, you know, we're kind of, at least for me, I was 19 when I had Maya. I was looking for that special sauce, that special thing. Like somebody has to have some sort of secret that they do or they have to get everything done or to do everything, or you know what I mean? Or like how
Yeah.
did they lose, like somebody has some sort of special secret somewhere and nobody's telling me it. And I feel like one of the hardest things in motherhood was coming to the understanding and realization that, oh, no, there's no special secret.
No.
But there are so many women who kind of like live either like there is some sort of special secret. And you know what? The special secret can be that they have a lot of help, or they
Yeah.
have somebody who comes in and cleans once a week, or, you know, grandma lives right next door, so you can send your kids there for an hour while you clean the house every day.
Oh,
Like,
exactly.
there's so much that we don't see. And I think we can we start comparing ourselves. Like I'll tell myself, which, you know, it comes down to what do you want to put out to the world too, right? Like I'm not at all going to be like, oh, I'm not going to talk to people unless I have makeup on and whatever and whatever. But
Right.
I feel like my posts on social media do a lot better when I have makeup on or when I'm presenting myself, you know, in that way and trying to be healthy and trying to, you know what I mean? And
Right.
you know, there's two sides and we can just so deeply fall on either side. And like our conversation yesterday of us being humble, like with our food choices, like being humble enough to say, "Oh, I've gained 10 pounds because every single day I have like three pieces of candy at
Yeah.
8 o'clock at night when my body can't metabolize it," or, you know, something along those lines. And
Yeah.
I think,
Or yummy sourdough bread, it's like,
yeah.
I
And
don't know.
you know, being honest with you, like there's nothing wrong with sourdough bread, but if you're eating a half a loaf every day, like maybe that's you.
And there is a lot of stuff in the Bible about gluttony. And
Well, and
I
just
mean, God didn't make
self-control.
yummy food, but it is another way to practice, yeah, to practice self-control.
Yeah. Yeah. I have you heard any of the stuff about the Ruby Frankie lady?
So who?
So she's this crazy mom influencer, mommy blogger gal who, oh, excuse me, sorry. I was gonna make a coffee before this and I forgot. Anyways, she had a hugely successful YouTube account where it was just like vlogs of their family all day,
Okay.
every day. And like getting, you know, but it was basically exploiting her children for views because, you know, not exploiting like in an inappropriate sense.
Right.
Like, oh, look at me and my kids, and we're the perfect, cutest little Mormon family, and we're amazing and adorable. You know what I mean? And people
Yeah.
love that. People love that. I don't know why, but they do. And when I was in high school, I used to watch family vlogs all the time because I wanted a family. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's what I wanted from life was a family. anyways, that's good enough topic. But hugely successful. She has it was called Eight Passengers. Her YouTube channel was because she had six kids and they had an eight passenger van, or they had a van with eight
Okay.
passengers, kind of thing. Anyways, it just the more and more famous she got, the worse it got for the kids. More unhappy the kids were. They got into this kind of like weird cult thing where it was just like
Oh,
views, but it's all for views. It's all for those views. And it's all for people to tell me I'm a good mom and I'm an amazing mom and I'm a fun mom and I'm a great mom. And we've had this conversation before of like who we are in public and who we are in private.
yeah.
And um anyways, it ended up her children, she like sent her husband away because it was just it was all sorts of off the rails. It was very extreme. But
Oh,
like and then one of her kids were abused, like physically, not sexually, but like physically, like beaten and like tied
yeah.
and like emotionally abused. And like the
I
13,
I might have heard of her, but again, like,
oh,
yeah,
it's
should
just it's
I
insane.
mean, how easy is it though? Like, if we go back to like how you're in public, I mean, that is being public with your life and like expecting a certain way for your children to act, and that's
Well,
not,
so they just did a documentary about it. And
yeah.
the kids are saying, like, we, you know, knew when the camera was on, mom would be
Mm.
nice. You
Oh,
know what I mean? And so often I think, well, it kind of reminds me of where Jesse was deployed in um, Bahrain. The Muslims think or like say that Bahrain is covered by a cloud and Allah can't see what you do there. So it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing.
ooh,
And
weird.
it is a very weird thought process. But how often do we think that God's not seeing what we're doing? Because we are so proud in the fact of we can do it and we're amazing and whatever. There is no humility. There is no, oh God, I am a sinner. It's like, oh God, I hope you didn't see that, and kind of moving on instead of
Right.
repenting and being like, God, whoa, that went off the rails. And I know you saw that, and please forgive me. And you know,
Okay. I was gonna say, how often do we like lose our mind at our children and then just go about our day
mm,
with like out showing them, okay, I did something wrong. And I mean, that's another way to just humble yourself because I don't really know like scientifically what that does for children, but I just know like I feel terrible if I lose my mind at my children because I'm just having a day, which I mean, I can't blame having a day on like just me being, oh, things aren't working out my way. Like that's really kind of what it is, or me being uncomfortable. But
well,
like when I lose my mind at my children and I'm not humble enough to be like, I'm sorry, mommy should not have yelled at you.
yeah. Well, if you think about it, like before you had children, it's not like you were standing there losing your mind, yelling at the wall, right? Like somebody would have
Yeah.
committed you at that point. So it's not that you're crazy or that you're unjustified and feeling overwhelmed. It's that
Yeah.
our sin comes and rears its ugly head, especially when we're overwhelmed, and
Hmm.
especially when there's a chance to cause disruption in our family.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's just like my thoughts lately have all been around like, who am I glorifying? Because I do, I do want, I want people to listen to our podcast, right? Like,
Yes.
I want people to watch what I put up on social media. And I feel better about myself when I get more likes, right? Or more views, or, and it's a terrible loop to be in because hopefully you're self-aware enough to know that's not okay. Our worth is
Right.
not what others think of us.
Mm-hmm.
But then we can put our worth in what we think of ourselves, and we can put our worth in, you know, how good we're doing as a mother, or how, you know, I'm doing this Bible study, and so I'm a better mom because I took the time to do that. Or we can just kind of I am the queen of just sitting and dragging myself. And it's terrible, but like I'll walk past the mirror and look at myself, and it's just like, ugh, like I don't like that. I don't like what I see. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
ashamed to admit that. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, you're growing, baby. You're growing, baby." I've made a lot of choices to have not lost weight. You know what I mean? I've made I don't need to be patronized. I don't need that. I do need, though, to be loved. You know what I mean? I do need, maybe that's why motherhood feels so isolating, is because we're patronizing each other instead of giving each other the honest truth and love of, I don't know.
So it's like how yesterday you and I had that little personal conversation where I was like, oh yeah, well, right before we got on the call, I had 2 pieces of sourdough toast and I'm making dinner. Like just yeah, I get it. Like you're growing a baby and we know, like you're like, I know,
Yeah.
but we need truth spoken into us. Like just as much as if you're sitting there, like if I were yelling at my kids and you're like, hey, you're yelling at your kids. Like in a loving way, it's still humbling to look at a sister and be like, hey, you should probably make healthier choices. Or I mean it like or my husband sometimes, will be like, wow, you're gonna have 3 tacos? Like that's my serving. You're just eating as many calories as me. And like now you're complaining why you can't lose weight. Like in the nicest way, I know why he's saying it.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
Well, and then we talked about as well, we also we need that, but we don't want to hear that, right? Like, don't you
Yeah.
dare tell me not to have 3 tacos. I want 3 tacos. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
so it's such a catch 22 in the scheme of like, I know I need to hear this, but I also don't want to hear it. So you figure that out for me. Wow, yeah,
Well,
the sun's
I
shining.
know. I think it's because I looked away for 1 second and now my figure it out camera. Yeah. I won't turn my head, I guess. Well, and I mean, how many times like the disciples or people when Jesus came and was preaching and teaching, like how many times were people like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this because I know what's wrong, but I really don't actually want to follow it. I don't want to hear it. Like just forgive me and get on with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Or, even we don't want to apologize, right? Like,
Mm.
we don't want to go ask for forgiveness from a person, let alone, you know, having the humbleness to go before God and say, God, please forgive me. And usually, when I'm at that point of where I'm asking God for forgiveness, I am broken, right? Like, I am at my wits' end. I am in the pits of despair, and I just don't know where else to go. So I have to go to Christ. It's kind of like how we were talking to Hannah last week about, hey, hey, I'm still talking and I need you guys to not. Sorry. Um,
It's okay.
about going through the withdrawals of her steroid medicine and just sitting there and being like, I can't do this. Like, this is impossible. And I think oftentimes God lets us get to our wits' end because I think your book was talking about that, right? Like,
Uh,
because I thought the page you sent me maybe said something like that. I don't know.
yeah, there was something. Hold on. Oh, well, if the page I remember I sent you was talking about, I'll just read this. Okay. God is not interested in puffed up, better than the next guy righteousness. The truth is, anything less than perfect righteousness will not cut it with God. How are you doing with that? And then God was challenging Habakkuk and us not to depend on our own goodness if we're hoping to avoid his judgment. We cannot live just by trying to be better than other people. God does not lower his standards. He requires perfect righteousness, but what God requires, he also provides. God provides for those who put their faith in him in the righteousness of another. And that comes from Habakkuk 2:4, which is, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. And it's funny because it's like, if you think about it, how do you have perfect righteousness? And the truth is we can't. Only Christ can. And going on from that, so now we know who the righteous are. They are not, they are the not so bad people, or they are not the not so bad people. They are the bad people who have received mercy, unrighteous people who have been declared righteous because they have taken hold by faith of the righteousness of Christ. So we do have perfect righteousness in Christ
Yes.
and now are presented clean and blameless and righteous before God.
Yes.
But we are not perfectly righteous.
No. Oh, that was good. Yeah. I think I was reading a Christian romance book a while back, and the girl was talking to the guy anyways, and he was talking about why he didn't want to go to church or something, or church would judge him or something. And she said to him, "Well, aren't you forgetting that church is full of sinners too? Like, just because you're going to church isn't like words doesn't mean that you're not a sinner. It means
Right.
that your sins are forgiven, right? And you have to be humble enough to ask for forgiveness and to go to the Redeemer and say, "Hey, God, I am messed. Like I can't do this without you." And
Mhm.
how often, as born again Christians, as believers in Jesus's good works on the cross, we still choose to sin. We still go down that path and have to be
Right.
brought back.
And I know it's probably not super uplifting to those, but we do sin every day. There is not a day that goes by where we don't sin, and we still need to ask the Lord for forgiveness. And like today, honestly, I feel like I'm having a pretty good day. Haven't yelled at my kids that much, but I but I still need to ask for them for forgiveness. I still have been very distracted by social media. Still putting everything else in front of God.
Yes.
And there was, I can't remember, I saw it on Pinterest, but it was like, in the, how do you expect to spend eternity with God, but not spend like any time with him here or any time getting to know him while you're here when
Oh,
proclaiming his goodness? You know, like, I don't
yes.
know the exact words, but it's like,
I've seen that quote.
it's a good quote. Makes you think about it. Makes you like, I gotta go pick up my Bible right now, kind of thing.
Exactly. Well, I was also listening to another podcast, and they were talking about Jesus himself taking the time to go be in prayer with God.
Mm-hmm.
to go be in communication with Christ or with God. He is
Yeah.
Christ. I don't know. But
Wording.
how I mean, and it is a discipline of saying, okay, I'm going to get up earlier than my children today to go. Sorry, we have to get a dinosaur mask on here. Oh, a dinosaur. Um, I know we're almost out of time. To go spend time with God. And I think if anything we leave you with from this podcast, even if, the internet blows up and there's no other podcasts created by us, I would just hope that as a mother, you know how important it is to be in the presence of God as much as you can be, which is, it should be every second, but
I mean, I love the ideas of like when you're folding your child's clothes, like instead if you're grumbling about it, pray over it. Um,
Yeah.
I know I have a hard time praying like out loud to God because I don't know why my mind just travels off. So I've actually started writing down my prayers because for some reason I can just focus a lot better. And then I was thinking like,
Sorry.
maybe no, you're good. Maybe is it gonna cut out
It
less than
is
a minute?
probably less than a minute.
Dang it, we'll continue on next time. It's
Yes,
okay.
next season. We shall continue this. But thank you
Yes.
for listening. Thank you for listening through all the screaming children and all the times we've had to take breaks in the middle of the podcast. And I don't know, I've had a great time.
Me too.
I think it's been good for me to just get my thoughts out. I'm definitely an outward thinker. And so I appreciate the people who have listened to give us